Hey everybody, so things between China and Taiwan are kind of tense right now, like really tense. Imagine going to a family reunion where your weird uncle keeps saying you owe him money and he's going to take your car. Awkward, right? China sees Taiwan as a breakaway province, a rebellious teenager who needs to be brought back into the fold. Taiwan, meanwhile, is like, nah, we're good. We've been doing our own thing for decades. This disagreement has been simmering for ages and lately it's been heating up. China's been flexing its military muscles, sending warships and planes near Taiwan. They're trying to intimidate Taiwan and say, we're serious about this whole one China thing. Taiwan, making it difficult for them to receive supplies and support from other nations. Basically, starving them out until they say, okay, we'll be part of China. The idea is to apply so much pressure that both in terms of lives and money. The human toll would be devastating, with countless lives lost and families torn apart. Plus, it would almost certainly drag the United States into the fight, and nobody wants to see that. The involvement of not forced Taiwan to surrender, and it would definitely piss off a lot of other countries who rely on trade routes through the region. The economic impact would be felt globally, disrupting international trade and causing widespread economic instability. Imagine the international outrage if China suddenly decided to shut down Amazon Prime deliveries. Chaos. The disruption to global supply chains would be unprecedented, affecting everything from consumer goods to essential supplies. So, while these options are still on the table, China might be looking for a different approach, something a little more subtle. They could employ a range of tactics from cyber warfare to economic pressure to achieve their goals without resorting to open conflict. Cyber attacks could clear. The stakes are incredibly high and the world will be watching closely as this situation unfolds. The geopolitical tension between China and Taiwan has been a focal point in East Asia for decades. While military confrontation is a constant threat, there are other strategies that China could employ to exert control over Taiwan. One such strategy is economic blockade, effectively starving the island nation of essential resources and trade. Could China achieve its goals without firing a single shot? This brings us to the whole grey zone thing. This is where things get really sneaky and complex. See, a quarantine wouldn't be an outright act of war. It's more like aggressive posturing. China could argue they're just conducting exercises or protecting their maritime interests. This makes it really hard for other countries to respond effectively. Do they intervene militarily to break the quarantine? That could escalate things into a full-blown conflict. Do they do nothing and let Taiwan twist in the wind? That sends a message that's
better weapons, and they're trained to be more assertive than your average Coast Guard. But here's the kicker. China's also got this massive fleet of fishing boats, and they're not just out there catching tuna. These boats are often crewed by members of China's maritime militia, basically, fishermen who moonlight as paramilitary forces. They're like the wacky neighbor who mows his lawn with a sword. You never know what they're going to do, but it's probably not going to be good. So, between the Coast Guard, the militia, and some strategically placed warships, China could create a pretty convincing quarantine without ever having to deploy their full navy. This multi-layered approach allows China to exert control and influence over vast stretches of ocean without the need for a traditional naval presence. The Coast Guard acts as the first line of defense, patrolling and monitoring activities, while the maritime militia provides a flexible and often unpredictable element that can be deployed quickly and discreetly. The warships, meanwhile, serve as a powerful deterrent, ready to step in if things escalate. This strategy not only conserves resources but also keeps other nations on their toes, never quite sure what to expect. It's a game of chess on the high seas, with China making calculated moves to expand its influence and protect its interests. By leveraging a combination of official and unofficial maritime forces, China is able to project power far beyond its shores, creating a formidable presence that is difficult to challenge. This approach also allows China to maintain a level of plausible deniability, as the actions of the maritime militia can be disavowed if necessary. It's a sophisticated and multifaceted strategy that reflects China's growing ambitions and its willingness to push the boundaries of international norms. So, while it may seem unconventional, this blend of Coast Guard, militia, and warships is a potent mix that enables China to assert its dominance over contested waters without resorting to outright naval warfare.
So, let's say China does go ahead with this quarantine. Economy is built on trade. It's the lifeblood of the nation, fueling everything from small businesses to large corporations. They make computer chips, electronics, all sorts of stuff that the world wants. These aren't just any products, they're essential components in global supply chains. But they need to import raw materials and export their finished products, and that's where the quarantine comes in. The flow of goods would be severely disrupted. Imagine your favorite online store suddenly saying, "Sorry, we can't ship to you anymore because there might be some, fishing boats in the way." This isn't just a hypothetical scenario, it's a looming reality. That's basically what Taiwan would be dealing with. Business owners would face unprecedented challenges in maintaining their operations. Factories would have to slow down or shut down altogether because they can't get the supplies they need. This would lead to a cascade of economic issues. People would lose their jobs, unemployment rates would skyrocket, leading to social unrest and economic instability. The cost of everything would go up. Inflation would hit hard, making everyday life more expensive for everyone. It would be a full-blown economic crisis. And the worst part? China knows it. They're fully aware of the leverage they hold. They're hoping that by squeezing Taiwan's economy, they can force them to the negotiating table. It doesn't say anything about responding to a quarantine. It's like having a fire extinguisher that only works on Tuesdays. If China starts messing with Taiwan's shipping, the US would have a tough choice to make. Do they risk a war with China to break the quarantine? Or do they stand by and watch as a democratic ally gets slowly strangled? It's a lose-lose situation, and it highlights the challenges of dealing with gray zone tactics. It's like trying to play chess with someone who keeps moving their rook diagonally. It's against the rules, but what are you going to do about it?
So why would China even consider this quarantine strategy? Why not just go all in with an invasion? Well, for starters, it's way less risky. An invasion could spiral out of control and drag the entire region into a devastating war. A quarantine, on the other hand, is more like a slow squeeze. It gives China more control over the situation. Plus, it plays to China's strengths. They've been investing heavily in their Navy, Coast Guard, and maritime militia, and this strategy allows them to use all those assets to their full potential. And let's be real, China knows that the international community is hesitant to get involved in a shooting war over Taiwan. A quarantine allows them to apply pressure without triggering a major military response. It's a cynical strategy, but it just might work. And that's what makes this whole situation so damn scary.